Hey everyone, James Labrie from Dream Theater, and you're listening to or watching the podcast Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian. Enjoy this. These guys are extremely informative. I love their dialogue. I love their interpretation of the songs, who and what we are, what we were going after. They're very accurate in their interpretations and descriptions, and I just think this is a great show, and these guys are doing a stand-up stellar job. So once again, enjoy Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Talking into Infinity, a Dream Theater podcast. I'm your host, John. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, talkingintoinfinity.com, and the cmsnetwork.com. We are live at those four locations every other Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you'd like to catch video replays of the show, just go to our YouTube channel or that of the CMS Network. And if you would like to catch audio replays of the show, just Google Talking into Infinity podcast, and we are on any number of platforms that you can think of. Let's bring in my very good friend, Mr. Brian Hendrickson. How's it going, man?
Is this our next show? Has it been 2 weeks?
It has been 2 weeks. Yes.
You know, I want to announce something officially live here. I wasn't going to do this, and you had no idea this is coming. This is going to be my absolutely last ever Talking into Infinity show for August of 2022. I know as I was finishing the sentence, Kale was texting you violently. Like, you probably have your phone went off 6 times, just admit it. He's like,
I have sorry to cut you off, but I have to admit, I had a little bit of a panic moment there. I was like, oh God, is he quitting? I'm like, oh, he doesn't want to do cage matches anymore. No. Oh, okay. All right. I see what he's doing.
I know Kale was texting you. He's like, it's coming. I'm just keeping the seat warm for all those Australian fans down there.
Yep. There he is. Kale says, you panicked me. Oh, my God. That's good.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, I don't know about these, but then when it rolls around and I start digging in, and you're going to be really surprised, I think, when we end up doing this one. But before we get to that, we were talking about documentaries and movies, and we'll lead into something in a second here, but have you watched, it's now on Prime, the Randy Rhoads documentary?
I actually just finished it last night, so I have watched it.
Okay. What were your thoughts?
I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Tracy Guns is kind of a crappy narrator. It's kind of boring.
Sure. Yeah.
But I mean, I thought it was really cool. It was really, really interesting. And Randy Rhoads obviously is, beyond compare. So, it was interesting that they brought up, the rivalry that he had with Eddie Van Halen when they were coming up there in the California area. So that was kind of cool. And it was interesting. It was a good watch. It wasn't overly long. I think it's like an hour and 20 minutes or something like that. So yeah, I dug it, man. It was really good.
Yeah, I loved that. The fact that they still have video footage of him doing his guitar solo. What did he call it? Laughing gas or something? It had a name.
Oh yeah. It's something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, but they played that every show. And like, did you have any idea that like Quiet Riot had like 35 songs or whatever with him back in those days? And I guess recorded all that stuff, but just never got on a major label or whatever.
Yeah, I did.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I was aware of it. I had never heard it, but I read a whole bunch of books from, that time period, being a monstrous Van Halen honk. So I'd read about it, but for some reason I never looked it up. And I have to wonder if it's because it was really not the Quiet Riot you would expect to hear. It was definitely not Metal Health and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's because it was really different. But, Randy himself was just, I mean, and even just in those videos when he's like 18 years old, like the guy's just note perfect.
Yeah, it's just crazy knowing that he had I knew he had a classical background, but I didn't realize that it was kind of like to that degree. And like they're talking about, try to break down, Revelation, Mother Earth, and try to, be on D and Diary, try to break that down and just play that, it's so intricate. and it seems like he was always striving to, kind of put this intricacy, but still keep it, heavy and
Yeah.
melodic also, which is just not easy to do, and total different style than Edward. I mean, let's be honest, there's not even close, which is what makes it awesome. Two totally different players.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing that was interesting to me was when they were talking about, the Diary of a Madman record, which is, for me, I much prefer that to Blizzard of Oz. Maybe Blizzard of Oz, I've just heard the song so many times. The thing that stood out to me was the fact that, they had all this time to work on the material for Blizzard, but then they said when they went in to do, Diary, he had to kind of throw it together. Like he had to just kind of rush the riffs. And I'm like, and I think it came out better than the previous one. So
Yeah,
I thought that was
imagine
really cool.
rushing riffs and you're coming up with like Over the Mountain and Flying High again. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, imagine those just pouring out of you. Like, what? Like,
Yep.
wow. I mean, yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and he just seemed like just like a sweet, like just kind of an old soul, I guess you call it. Like, he just didn't care about the fame or the forge. I guess, or what? Well, maybe he did make some money, but he wasn't in it that long. But you know what I mean? But it was like he just a down to earth guy. Like he doubted he was even good enough to be in Ozzy. Like, didn't he almost blow off the audition? He was like, sound like he wasn't even going to go or something.
It was, well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was that extreme, but it definitely, like the way they kind of like described these things, it almost wasn't like some earth-shattering thing that he was going with Ozzy, which I guess would kind of make sense because at that point Ozzy was kind of like, I don't think you could say a has-been, but Sabbath was definitely on a decline. Yeah. And Ozzy was famous for just being absolutely blitzed out of his gourd every single day. So I don't think anybody really expected Ozzy to really be anything, but it was still a high-profile thing, and I don't think they kind of gave it the gravity that it really deserved. But I mean, it was still entertaining. It was really good, and anytime you get to learn something about somebody like Randy Rhoads, I mean, it's you can't go wrong with that. So that's pretty cool.
Well, that leads us into you just got tickets for Dio, correct?
Yeah, the Dio documentary is going to be something about a dreamer or something like that. Anyway, on September 28th, I got us tickets to go see that at a local movie theater. So we're going to be checking out the long-awaited Dio documentary. So that ought to be interesting. I don't know anything about Dio except for, the fact that he's an incredible vocalist. And I have a few friends that met him and played some shows overseas with him and said he really was like the sweetest guy ever. So that's about all I know. So I'm going to definitely, spend an hour and a half learning a lot about Ronnie James Dio that night for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. I mean, I'm on record that I think the two best Black Sabbath albums, honestly, are the ones with Dio on it. I mean,
Yeah.
Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, I don't even think it's, I mean, I guess you obviously make case for Paranoid and whatnot, but those are my two favorites. I think the band was just locked in. The songs are just amazing. The solos are great, and there's no wasted anything going on in any of it,
Sure.
So it should be very cool. I'm psyched for that.
Yep, me too, man. So before we get into tonight's main event, by the way, speaking of main events, Kale says, "Can I just say I love the background of this episode?" I figured I had to make it kind of like a championship atmosphere, Kale. I had to do it. So our buddy Jean-Philippe is checking in. Good to see you, man. Thanks for jumping in here. Mike Schollenberger, he is checking in. Thanks for tuning in live. Appreciate it. So we do have a preliminary match, Brian, before we get to tonight's main event. And you had this idea on one of our previous cage matches, and I thought it was a good one. So we're going to do a really quick mini cage match. We picked an album from 1989 to go up against an album from 2007, and we picked Testament's Practice What You Preach to go against Symphony X's Paradise Lost. So I'm going to let you start it off, and we're not going song by song. We're just saying, a very quick who wins and why. So who wins this preliminary bout for you and why?
I'll say Symphony X only because this was kind of their first super major label thing where they had the most support behind them, and the production on it and the sound on it is just kind of the two that came after it. They all sort of have that awesome, just super powerful professional sound to them, and just the beginning tracks with the orchestra and the choir behind it and that evil sound, and it goes into Set the World on Fire and just stuff like Serpent's Kiss, and I love that the title track Paradise Lost, one of the greatest like vocal performances over just a killer piano riff. Russell Allen on that. Practice What You Preach, classic Testament album. I will give Paradise Lost the, I'll give it a slight edge just because Testament has so many great albums. And I don't even know if you personally think that that's their best. I'll let you go ahead and weigh in on that.
No, to me, the best Testament record is probably The Gathering. I really like that one. Actually, an underrated record of theirs that I really enjoy is Low. But I think Practice What You Preach is awesome. I don't have a lot of experience with Paradise Lost or Symphony X. Obviously, we did that Symphony X episode with discography discussion, so I listened to all of it then. This was kind of difficult for me. For Adam Rishog, it's not, though. He says Paradise Lost wins this by an absolute landslide. I will not go that far. Chris Moran, he says Symphony X is awesome. I like the song Set the World on Fire. This is a close one to me, and I am going to give the edge to Paradise Lost, but I much prefer Testament as a band. But I'm giving this to Paradise Lost because I think it's Symphony X's strongest record. The production, obviously, granted, we're talking about 18 years apart, but it is what it is, and I love the production. It's solid all the way through, and as much as I like the Testament record, I really think there are kind of a couple songs in there that are nah. Whereas Paradise Lost is strong all the way through. So I think for me, I would give a slight edge to Paradise Lost. So it's not the landslide that Adam Rishog thinks it is, for at least for me. But so it's a 2-0 victory for Paradise Lost and Symphony X.
And Phil Ooze wants to know Cannibal Corpse versus Boy George.
Oh boy, it's gonna be one of those shows.
Win that one.
Phil Ooze, oh boy. He does say that Symphony X wins. So Phil Ooze there's 3-0, and Adam Rishog. Okay, Adam, you cannot call something a landslide if you've never listened to one of the bands. Okay, he says full disclosure, never listened to Testament before. Well, then you can't vote. That's like being like a boxing referee and you're blind. The guy in the black trunks won. What the hell are you talking about? One's wearing green, one's wearing yellow. Like, what are you doing?
Speaking of Adam Rishog, my episode Killswitch Engage Song Draft is now up on Here's What's Spinning, available podcast worldwide. That was a quick
excellent
promo there.
I was waiting for your plug.
Yeah.
And I will have a podcast episode coming out as well. I did discography discussion again. This time it was just me and Joe, and we did Van Halen. And I'm interested to hear how it came out because I got pretty drunk. So
wait, you?
A little bit, yeah. I finally have some time off from the band, so I played that afternoon. I was sipping some bourbon and having a little bit of beer, and it caught up to me to the point where I texted Joe the next morning. I'm like, I think we forgot to do like Balance Through the End, and he says, no, we got all the records. I was like, oh boy.
Well, so you guys literally did every album, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is me. Give me a chance to talk about Van Halen. It's going to go all night.
Right.
So it won't when we do our episode on October 6th, but close enough. So, all right. So our preliminary bout is out of the way with Symphony X taking it. Man, poor Testament. They didn't even get a single vote. But that brings us to our cage match for the evening, and tonight's battle is 1989's When Dreamin' Day Unite versus 2007's Systematic Chaos.
Ding.
Yeah, we need sound bites, like all the crowd noises and bells and stuff like that. This is going to be an interesting one because we've done our Systematic Chaos deep dive. If any of you have not seen that video or listened to that podcast, you can find it anywhere you can find all of our other episodes. Systematic Chaos is such an up and down record. And a lot of people are not really fans of When Dreamin' Day Unite, you being one of them. So I'm really interested to see where you go with this. Because, I mean, outside of, I think, one or two maybe really obvious ones in this, in this contest, I think there's some interesting things to compare. So where did you land in this? Was it more difficult than you thought it would be? Did you surprise yourself? Like, how did it work out for you?
I definitely surprised myself. I am digging Dreamin' Day Unite the more that I hear it.
I knew it. I'm converting you.
Now, that comes with the caveat it's mostly musically. And it's not
Okay.
that I'm not a fan of Charlie's vocals. I think is a very good singer. I just think the vocal melodies, and I don't know who was responsible for writing those back then. Doesn't matter, honestly. But musically, it's a lot of the stuff is starting to grow on me.
Okay.
I think it's a little more together than I had originally said. Now, it's still obviously a young band, and I still think there's a little bit of that, man, this might be our only shot. Let's throw everything into the kitchen sink into this,
Yep.
And that comes across at times. But, that's what young bands do. So, especially when you're
Sure.
that talented musically, they're like, well, I can do anything, I go to one of the greatest, musical conservatory learning institutions in the world, Berkeley, so.
Sure.
But yeah, I did surprise myself on this, and I'm probably surprised you. So we'll see what goes on here.
Okay. Yeah, this I actually had a tie for one of my songs, and we're not allowed to have a tie, so I had to find a way to break that tie. So that was a very difficult one. Kale McLeish says, "Guys, track 5 is an either way here." I guess we're gonna find out, Kale. I guess we're gonna find out. Julio Espinoza, thanks for tuning in. He says, I started to dig When Dream and Day Unite after listening to when they did the When Dream and Day Reunite show. Labrie sounds much better singing those tunes. Yeah, the only thing I will say about that, Julio, is that I was listening to that in preparation for this show because, obviously the original version's not available on like streaming platforms and whatnot, but the Lost Not Forgotten archives are. And I just wish that they would have done When Dream and Day Unite maybe the first half of that show, because they were doing, the split set evening with shows on that tour for Train of Thought. And I just, James had blown voice out that first set, like, rocking it out. And then he's got to do all this, 1989 stuff. I really wish they would have reversed it so that he was in a little bit better form, for When Dream and Day Reunite, because that's a bitch of a record to sing. So if they were going to record and release it, I just wish they would have given it to him first instead of second. But
is that on video? Is that one of the ones you gave me that I didn't watch yet?
Yes, that's one of the. Yes, I have it on video, which means right now you have it on video.
All right, I got to go watch it now because I'm inspired to watch it after listening to this album again. I'd listen to it on YouTube just so I could get the original.
Well, I will tell you the coolest way to watch that is with the commentary track. That is a great way to watch that show because it's. I know it's Mike. I think it's Petrucci as well, talking about that show as it's going, and it's a really, really cool way to listen to that. So I would recommend doing that. I mean, since you're already familiar with the music. Alrighty, so let's dive into this one. I'm gonna start, and right off the bat, we have A Fortune in Lies against In the Presence of Enemies Part 1. And this is actually my tie. I had the hardest time deciding on this one. And I went with A Fortune in Lies. And I know it's pretty much solely based on the nostalgia aspect of things. I love the Kevin Moore, like his writing style. It's a little more upbeat. And I love In the Presence of Enemies. Like if you had to ask me which of these songs I wanted to listen to, it'd be even. Like I don't care, put either one on. I love them both. But I think like the whole, again, just the nostalgia factor for me on A Fortune in Lies. I had to pick one, so that's the one that I chose. But I think they're both absolutely phenomenal songs. I've said that in the past on the show, and you really can't go wrong with either of them. So, what did you choose?
Well, obviously, In the Presence of Enemies. It kind of sucks that Fortune and Lies got put up against this because I think it's the best song on Systematic Chaos. It's one of my probably top 5 songs of theirs of all time. Now, I think it's getting there, easily top 10. And I think Fortune and Lies is likely probably the best song, or the song most people want to hear off of Dream and Day Unite, obviously. But I can see why, you have such a emotional, nostalgic, tie to that. So that's going to be tough for you to pick against that.
Yeah, they're incredible songs, man. It's It's hard for me. It's hard for me to say if a Fortune and Lies is the best song on the on When Dream and Day Unite. Well, looking at no, I think it is. Yeah, I would say you're right. Yeah. Look at this, Phil Ooze. He says, as far as I'm concerned, When Dream and Day Unite over anything post 2002. Seriously. Wow. Okay. Well, now wait a minute though. That's not very many records. That'd be Train of Thought. Well, no, it's Train of Thought, Octavarium, Systematic Chaos, and Systematic Chaos, Black Clouds, and all the Mangini stuff. I don't know, man. Distance Over Time kicks a lot of ass. But all right, interesting. That's an interesting thought. Okay. All right, so we are moving on to track 2. We have Status Seeker versus Forsaken. Which one do you have as the victor in this one?
I went ahead and went with Status Seeker.
What? Wow.
Yeah, you know what? I like that 80s power synth thing they got going on there. And I don't know, Forsaken's always... I'd never want to say a Dream Theater song sounds forced. And I don't know that I'm necessarily saying that on this, but it seems like kind of trying to write a single almost. And I'm not saying it's a bad song by any stretch. It's one of their obviously most accessible. Yeah, Status Seeker. I just think that's a cool song on this album, and I've always kind of liked that song.
Okay, I know that you said when we were talking about Forsaken before, you said it sounded like they were trying to write an Evanescence tune. That's how you had phrased
Well, yeah,
it.
I mean it's from that same time frame too, so I think so. I don't know. I mean it's a cool story. I like the whole vampire comes and bites you at night and stuff. Especially vampire chick. But I don't know, Status Seeker has that we talked before about. It's like there's a real Geddy Lee thing going on there. Has a bit of the mid '80s Rush, feel to it, which I'm always a fan of. So, yeah, I would take Status Seeker. I think in this instance, just because it's a little bit different, and it's a totally different thing than they've ever done. We pointed this out before. They have a handful of songs where they never ever did a song that sounded remotely like that. But you might be able to say the same about Forsaken too, I guess.
Man, I okay. So full disclosure, I picked Status Seeker as well because I'm a closet Status Seeker fan. I mean, I drafted it in our song draft and everything, and man, I did not expect all this support for Status Seeker. I am shocked.
Cale McLeish,
dude. Everybody, look at this. Look at this. Mike Schallenberger says Status Seeker. Chris Moran has 1 vote for Forsaken. Adam Rishog, Status Seeker for me as well. Forsaken is one of the weakest songs on the record. Andrew Kraft, good to see you, man. Thanks for tuning in. He says Status Seeker, not a fan of Forsaken. Phil Ooze, Status Seeker rules, even if it sounds like a Rush outtake. So there you go. And Cale McLeish, track 2, unashamedly Status Seeker. I never cared for Forsaken, but Status Seeker has a heap of poppy power to it that I absolutely love. Man, where have all you guys been for all these episodes, man? I did not know there was all this love.
This doesn't surprise me though, man. I think there's a kind of a general, almost a disdain for Forsaken. Like people are like, yeah, they just, I think they expect more. Like, okay, hey, it was too easy. I can almost play some of those parts. I don't know. For lack of a better word, I think that's what people think. It's just not. It's not progressive or experimental enough. So to them, it's kind of throwaway-ish.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm just really surprised. I never hear anybody talking about Status Seeker. I feel like I'm like on an island where that song is concerned, but apparently not. So, sweet.
Well, I mean, again,
right, Status Seeker. That one.
Look at the concept here. We're putting the two against each other. I don't think anyone's going to jump up and go, "Oh, Status Seeker."
Well, I know, but hey, I'm still surprised. And by the way, Adam Rishog, what you just saw right there, that was called a landslide. Not I'm picking one record over another, and I haven't heard the other record that I'm choosing the other one over. So this is a true landslide in favor of Status Seeker. All right, so moving on to track 3. We have Yitzhak Jam versus Constant Motion. For me, this one was a little difficult, but I actually went with Constant Motion on this one. I mean, it has words. I guess you could say that. Oh, there's words in Constant Motion. But Constant Motion is a Dream Theater favorite for me. That song just moves all the way through. It just rocks. It's metal, and Yitzy Jam's really cool, and I like it a lot. It's Dream Theater's kind of look. We can do our version of YYZ, I suppose, in a way. But for me, if you're going to ask me which one are you going to listen to, you're going to listen to one of the two. I'm going to go with Constant Motion, and I love the heavy parts of that song. I've always loved just the riffs and the way the lyrics kind of tell the story perfectly along with the music. It they fit the vibe of it. And the song is titled perfectly. The song is in constant motion. So yeah, I've got Constant Motion for track 3. Which one do you have? Yitzy Jam or Constant Motion?
Yeah, this was pretty easy. I mean, Constant Motion, Yitzy Jam. I think I like a little more than I used to. I don't know that I like the kind of the middle towards the end. I feel like it sort of loses something there.
Okay.
But Constant Motion, it's funny listening to that because we just did our moving pictures deep dive, and there's some real sort of tension pulling baseline things going on there that remind me of some stuff that you hear on some of the stuff on moving pictures. And I just love the tension and the dynamics that are all throughout that song, even though it is, no pun intended, constant motion. It's like, it's always it's almost like a constant evolution too. It's evolving and it's pushing and pulling, like you're just really feeling this tension in the lyrics and the music, and it really kind of grinds, and then it, and then it rocks. Like you said, it's got these multiple levels and layers to it that, you can really appreciate when you dig into it, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's very concise. It's one of their best written songs, I think, because there's a lot that happens, and it's not one of those extremely long, grueling types of listens for them. So, I just think they did a phenomenal job on that track all the way around. This one's kind of down the middle. Kale says, track 3, I have to go for a tie. Constant Motion and Yitzy Jam is an impossible bout. If you're going to force it, I might give a slight edge to Motion for dueling vocals, but Yitzy Jam sets a high bar for DT instrumentals. Also, I share initials with Constant Motion, so I guess I have to wear that one. Yeah, I guess you do. There we go. Adam, he's rooting for Constant Motion. He says some of the drum work in the bridge section is unreal. He says, fun fact, Constant Motion was the original title for the album. Adam is like our resident factoid guy, especially after that Scenes from a Memory deep dive that we did. I think he's he's like our Dream Theater librarian, I think. So Chris Moran is voting for Constant Motion. Andrew Kraft is voting for Yitzy Jam. And Phil Ooze, he says this is easy. Yitzy Jam. The main riff is a classic. Sounds a bit like that French movie soundtrack, The Young Girls of Rochefort. Truckers Ballet. Look it up. What? What the hell is that reference?
There, yeah, I haven't seen many French movies about truckers and dancing. So
wow, good for you, Phil Luz. All right, there we go. All righty. All right, so we are moving on. We are on to track number 4. It is The Killing Hand versus The Dark Eternal Night. And which one do you have taking the crown for this one?
This is hard. This is another one I think I always kind of liked Killing Hand, and I'm liking it more now, but I still got to go with Dark Eternal Night. But I mean, Killing Hand, there's that obvious Queensryche one riff in there we talked about before, but there's so much Fate's Warning feel to it that I just love. I mean, it just transports me back to I know this is 89, but it's like some of the riffing in that, it's almost off of Queensryche The Warning, which is way earlier, 84 or whatever.
Yep.
So yeah, I think and I love the way Killing Hand has like the 5 parts to it or whatever it is, and it's laid out like a Rush or like a Fate's Warning is done on their music. But yeah, Dark Eternal Night, I mean, that's just a big giant bombastic, 15 minutes of molten metal,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be pretty hard to go against, behemoth. I think we've used that word before. So yeah, I got to go Dark Eternal Night.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I really like the Killing Hand as well. It's not one of my favorites from When Dream and Day Unite, to be honest. I think it kind of like is a you can see what they were going for, and you know where it would end up on future records. But I think for their first foray into a long format song, I think it kind of meanders here and there. So it's a good song, and I enjoy it. There's the melodies in the music at least are beautiful. I think this might be a good song. You mentioned at the beginning of the show talking about the vocal melodies on When Dream and Day Unite lacking here and there, and I think the Killing Hand is one of the ones where that kind of stands out. And the Dark Eternal Night, you used the perfect word, behemoth. I mean, it could be argued that this is the Dream Theater behemoth. I mean, it's they don't have another song like it, at least riff wise. It's like, I remember when this record first came out and I first heard this song, I was like, man, that is a weird riff. Like, it's heavy, but that's kind of weird. And every time I've heard it since, I think, man, that's kind of weird. I love the vibe of it, and it is dark, and holy crud, man, this song just, what a grind. I mean, it's heavy, and they did that awesome animation for it for the tour, with them like on the tank and everything like that, and all the goofy stuff, and it's one of my favorites. So for me, this was actually one of the easier ones to get into. I took the Dark Eternal Night, and it's again, when I was going through these two records, there were a couple ones where I just automatically just checked off a song, like, okay, well, this is obvious, this is the one I'm going to pick, and this was one of them, because it was just like, dude, it's the Dark Eternal Night. It's kind of like we said when we were coming up with this, like, we do a random number generator, and one of the albums that came up was Images and Words, and we decided not to do Images and Words because it's like, well, that wins. Like, what's going to beat Images and Words? So, it's kind of like the Dark Eternal Night. Like, what in most instances, what's going to beat it? So for my money, it's the Dark Eternal Night. And let's see what the listeners, viewers are saying. Mike Schollenberger says the Killing Hand wins from its live iterations. Okay, all right. Chris Moran says Dark Eternal Night, best dark 7-string song on the album. Love the ending riff on that song. Yeah, that's definitely awesome. So Andrew Kraft says Dark Eternal Night all the way. Phil Ooze says the Killing Hand. Again, that main riff is a monster. Adam Rishog, this one's easy. Dark Eternal Night for show. Kale's voting for Dark Eternal Night. He says, I think we're all tied to the first song at our first Dream Theater concerts, and this is mine. Super heavy, extra epic, and let's be fair, that keyboard solo at the end is brutally heavy. Yeah, that continuum solo is pretty rad, dude. That's pretty good. So, all right, well, moving on to track number 5. We have...
And now it's track number 6.
Remember how I said that certain ones I just looked at the albums and instantly chose a song? Well, this is the one. And I purposely started out the show with me going first, because usually I have you go first. But I knew that if I went first, I'd get to talk about this one first. So it's Light Fuse and Get Away, which is, I think, an underrated song. I kind of dig it for some reason. Versus Repentance. And Repentance might as well be retitled Gorilla Fart, because it is the Gorilla Fart of the Dream Theater catalog. It's no secret that I am not a fan of that song at all. I tried to listen to it again today, and it never, ever changes. I'm like, man, what the hell? Jeez. Whew. Man, oh man. Yep, Kale says it. Light Fuse and Get Away. Death to Repentance. Phil Ooze. Light Fuse on Repentance and Get Away. Nice. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Like, if the guys are ever listening to this, and Chris Moran votes for Repentance, by the way, If the guys are ever listening to this, I hope they don't get pissed with how much I dislike Repentance. But man, I just do not like that song. And Light Fuse and Getaway, I think, is an interesting one. I kind of dig it. It's got the riff under the chorus is really cool. It's some really interesting phrasing in there, like it's got some really, really wild note choices that are really cool. Andrew Kraft is on my side. Anything but Repentance. Yeah.
Wait, who voted for Repentance?
No, Chris Moran. He actually voted for Repentance. I was trying to gloss over that, Brian.
I thought you pronounced it Chris Moran. Sorry.
Yeah. All right, Chris, you're going to have to explain yourself on this one. I was trying to give you an out by just glossing over it quickly, but Brian caught it. So, Chris Moran, you are going to have to explain. Get up in front of the class and explain yourself. Why did you choose Repentance over Light Fuse and Getaway?
You know what? In fairness, I don't think Repentance is as bad as I originally thought. I'm not going to sit here and say it's good either.
Oh, no, Brian's internet. Oh, no, look, Brian's internet. Oh, no. Oh, if only we could have heard Brian trying to get... Oh, damn, he's back.
Man, Light Fuse and Getaway. Here's my... okay, let's do a tie. And I'll do a tie up until the vocals come in. There's some really cool dissonant, to go back to Fate's Warning kind of style stuff. There's some really cool accents going on with the keyboards and stuff, with the powered synth brass kind of sound. But man, when the vocals come in on this, it's just a hot mess. It's frankly, it's terrible. It's like, it almost hurts my ears. It's so, I don't know. It just seems so like, hey, I'm just going to yell this out, whatever. And sometimes you can get away with that on stuff, but I don't think it works at all here. And it's funny because I've grown. Like I said, I appreciate the music on this song big time. I think it's a really cool first 3 minutes or whatever ish. And then the vocals come in and just, I don't know. I think it totally ruins the song. Like, I'd almost wish it had stayed an instrumental if that's what you're going to do with it vocally. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So this one's really hard for me to I can't do a tie, right? So I guess, I mean, if I have to listen to one all the way through, I probably would say Repentance.
Oh my God. You gotta be kidding me.
That's how much I can't stand the vocals and Light Fuse Get Away.
So then listen to the instrumentation, for God's sakes. You gotta be kidding me. You did not just pick Repentance.
Hey, we've said before that this Repentance thing is, I'm on board with saying I don't think it's a great song, but this is way more your triple double down on you can't stand it. I've got one coming later, don't worry.
Oh my God. You know what? I'm going to go through all of our old audio and pick the dumb things you say, and just one of these shows I'm just going to play nothing but a collection of your stupidity, and we're going to just publicly ridicule you in a show called Why Brian's a Moron, and it's going to be all because you picked Repentance. How do you do that? I thought we were friends.
Well, we could just replay this show and we're going to get, 40 minutes of yours. We don't have to go through it.
Yeah, mine are easy to find.
All right. Okay, here's the thing. If I get a program where I can take the vocals out of each song, then I'll go with Light Fuse and Getaway. How about
Dude,
that?
Jordan's Moises app. Come on. Okay. You are really off your A game on this one.
If we allow that as a stipulation, then I will side with you on that.
The Phil Ooze, cut Brian's internet again. Adam Rishog, time to find a new co-host, John. Oh my gosh. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. There is no defending Repentance. There just isn't.
And there's no.
I understand you don't
like on Light Fuse and Getaway either, so don't even.
Okay, but you're saying no defending the vocals. I'm saying the entire song.
I mean, well, again, I don't mind the music so much on Repentance, but it's the heavy-handed, just bashed over the head with, for the 4 millionth time. You know what I mean? About righting the wrongs and the horrors of alcoholism and all this and that. That's the part that bugs me the most. It's not the music.
It's just so repetitious. And
yeah,
it doesn't really.
Well, the reason Well, that's because of what they're doing vocally over it. That's why it is that way. I understand that, but
I mean, there's never that. At least in like the long draggy parts, which we're gonna get to shortly. Um, you know, at least they go into some power metal part or change it up somehow. Repentance never changes it up. It's just always just.
all right, we
Jeez.
stopped the song after 2 minutes and 45 seconds. I'll take Light Cheese and Get Away. How about that?
Oh man! All right, that's a whole nother episode. Here we go. Here we go. Alex is tuning in. Thanks for checking out the show, man. He says, "Systematic Chaos was my first Dream Theater record, and Repentance just confused me." Yeah, it confused me too. It confused me how Dream Theater could put out a crappy song. Again, if the guys are listening to this, we're dead. We're dead in the water. They're gonna be like, "Fuck that guy. He's an asshole."
I don't think so,
But-
because this is a lot of Portnoy here.
Yeah, I just
Now,
man,
Portnoy's
man.
listening, and we want to try to get an interview for that upcoming show. We're
That's going to be the email response. We were about to say yes, and then we heard you talking about repentance, and we were like, no, F those guys.
I mean, imagine like they've never heard of us or listened to one episode, and they go, "Oh, well, let's just get prepared. We'll listen to the most recent episode."
Or the Systematic Chaos deep dive.
Oh, God.
Me just yelling about the song. Oh, my gosh. All right. So we are on to track 6, which is Afterlife versus Prophets of War. You are up.
I'm going Afterlife. Always loved the riff. Always loved the chorus on this. Prophets of War. I've never kind of known exactly what that is. Like, that's the one where the fans come in and are singing the chorus, right? The gang vocals. I don't know. I like the cool keyboard stuff at the beginning and whatnot, but it feels, especially after coming after Repentance, which is super heavy-handed and preachy. And it's like, hey guys, war is bad. A lot of people make money off of war, and it's like, man, that's really kind of bashing you over the head like twice in a row there, with a super kind of political, preachy kind of a thing. And I don't know, that's one of those weird songs that I don't think they hardly ever play. And we've talked before when we did the deep dive. Like, I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't hate it, the way I do some of the other stuff, but Afterlife, I just think is just a fun, cool riff. Kind of reminds me of maybe some later 80s Maiden-ish kind of with that. You could sort of see them when they were doing their more mainstream kind of stuff with the riff in there. But I always like the riff in that, and the vocal I think is cool. So I definitely would take Afterlife.
Okay. I also chose Afterlife. Prophets of War it's a good tune, but I mean, to me, it's just kind of there. It's not a skippable song. The only one I really have in the whole catalog with that is Repentance, obviously. But Prophets of War, good song. It's okay. I always think about the crowd chants in that, because they had announced, you could go to the studio and record with them and go be on the album, and I was gonna go do that, but I decided not to because I had been to SCORE not that long before, and I kind of didn't want to push it at work and take a lot of time off in that short a period of time. So I could have been on the record, but I was trying to be a responsible employee. So that's what stands out to me about Prophets of Wars. I could have been on that. So, but I mean, it's a good song, and I'm with you. Afterlife is interesting. Phil Ooze brought up a good point. He chooses Afterlife. He says, even though the lyrics are 6th grade level. No, let me take that back. Man-O-War level. Charlie wrote them. Don't worry, guys. Yeah, I mean, the lyrics aren't great, but I love the music to it. I also, like you, I thought that was just like a really cool riff. I think, this is one of the choruses they really hit on this record. You hate Light Fuse and Get Away, obviously, and I think that one suffers from, they were kind of noodling in the chorus, so there wasn't really a lot of melody to grab onto there to sing over. So, but this one is not. This is like a pretty good melodic bed to sing over, and I think they did a great job on this song. So, Phil Ooze, he asks, Isn't Prophets the one where they go full Queen with the background vocals? Yes, it is. So yeah, I mean this one to me is pretty much like this was an easy one for me. I think Afterlife's one of my favorite songs on When Dream and Day Unite. Prophets of War is just kind of there, so I chose Afterlife. Kale, he asks, isn't Prophets the one where a lead vocal section was on a backing track with Mike's rap? I know this one has that. Yeah, I mean he's doing something in there. So, look at Joseph Wren. He said John is very serious tonight. No, John is not very serious tonight. You're just
You must
tuning
have
at the
been
wrong
a
time,
total drunken idiot on that show.
dude. I'm telling you,
or in other words, you know.
If Joe would do it, I would re-record the back half of that Van Halen show because I don't remember, and I'm afraid I acted like an idiot and said some really dumb crap. So
Minus the acting.
exactly. All right, so I am really interested to see what you have for track 7. Because after the debacle that you made of Light Fuse and Getaway versus Repentance, track 7 is The Ones Who Help to Set the Sun against the Ministry of Lost Souls. And this was one of those easy ones for me. The Ones Who Help to Set the Sun, I mean, the Ministry of Lost Souls, we've said it in the past, is not our favorite song. And this one kind of drones on, but then it does have that cool middle part, which is, it kind of saves it there with the up-tempo middle part, which is cool. But The Ones Who Help to Set the Sun for me is one of those weird Dream Theater songs that I've said many times in the past that I kind of get into when they get really kind of quirky. So this was an easy one for me. And I mean, look at this, man. Look, Mike Schollenberger, he says Ministry hands down. Not a competition for me. Adam Rishog chooses Ministry of Lost Souls.
Yeah, shocker. That's one of his favorites.
Wow.
Just surprised me.
Good Lord. So, yeah, this is just way too easy for me. The Ones Who Helped to Set the Sun, this was a cakewalk. So, I would like to think this would have been easy for you, but now I'm not so sure. So, which one did you choose? The Ones Who Helped to Set the Sun or the Ministry of Lost Souls?
Well, what I'll say about Ministry of Lost Souls is it's just under 15 minutes, but it barely even feels like 37 and a half. Like, I mean, maybe 35. I mean, I don't know what anybody sees in this song. I just don't. I mean, the main string riff or whatever, it's okay, but it's not enough to milk 15 minutes around unless you really get some interesting things going. And I just don't. I don't hear it. I just hear a super long drone. And I actually I specifically listened to the songs that I knew that I wasn't that crazy about just to make sure, and I also knowing that Dream and Day Unite, I was, was never totally huge on, but slowly growing on me. So yeah, I agree with you. One Who Sets the Sun, I think I said before, there's really kind of some cool guitar things going on there that you don't really hear them do. And I think are very interesting. And, unless this had gone up against, I don't know what on here, there was no way I was picking. I was as hardcore against this as you were on Repentance, that this was just not, there was no way. Just especially because it's 15 minutes. I mean, at least Repentance is only 8 or whatever. I don't know.
No, it's like 12, ironically.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It's yeah. That's the other part. Yeah, you still got me, dude. My internet's running a little bit wonky.
Yeah, you're getting cartoonish again, but
all right, then you talk.
So yeah, I mean, this was super easy for me. It was One Who Sets the Sun. Again, there's some really cool guitar things going on. I actually like the vocals in this, like John said. It's very different. It's very unique, and I'm curious. Do you know, or do any of our listeners, watchers know? What was the order of them writing these songs to get them on the album? Like, so you know what I'm getting at? I'm getting at the growth here. Like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do, but no, we're going to do this because, like we've said before, these songs are kind of all over the place. almost until we get to the very last one, which is only a matter of time, and we are there. Which will lead into that. But I'm curious, what do you think is like the most recent song that they wrote before they recorded this album?
Phrase that again.
So when they're writing, when they're doing all their initial writing for this album, are these just songs they just had compiled over the time of practicing, or was it like we're specifically writing for the album, and like which songs came first? That's what I'm curious of. Like, what was the progression of writing? Like, because these styles are all over the place.
No, this was in there. I mean, they had already started their period of, they start writing once they get into the studio.
Okay.
And the first song they wrote was In the Presence of Enemies, and that's why they split it up, because they're like, well, we just ended the last record on a 24-minute song. We can't open the next one with it.
Phil Ooze just nailed it. John is so sober he doesn't even understand. No, I'm talking about Dream and Day Unite, you dope, not Systematic.
Oh, okay. I got confused there.
You think?
Well, you're asking what order they wrote the songs, and I'm thinking, well, I was a little confused because I'm going, well, it's on that DVD, the making of it tells you what order they wrote it in.
Little.
But good Lord, who the hell cares what order they wrote When Dream and Day Unite? How am I supposed to know?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying is like, I want, because the styles are so crazy. Was it like, oh, well, we need a song that's like this. Well, we need one now that's like this. And did they eventually grow into, like we keep saying, we will now get to the last song, Only a Matter of Time, versus In the Presence of Enemies Part 2. And this is probably closer than you think for me.
Okay.
Because I've said many times, Only a Matter of Time feels like we're really getting ready to graduate to what is Images and Words.
Mm-hmm.
But and I also like In the Presence of Enemies Part 1 better. And it is 2 songs. It's definitely not one song that they split up into 2.
Here we go again.
Songs. It's not one.
Here we go again.
So yeah, I'll take In the Presence of Enemies Part 2, but I think it was closer than I thought on those. I'm guessing for you, it's probably not close at all.
No, this was a close one as well. I really like Only a Matter of Time. I've always completely agreed with your assessment that it's, you can kind of, it's a good lead into Images and Words. I think that's a very astute point. I think you can definitely hear it when you listen to it in that context. It's kind of majestic to me, so I really like that. There's some cool time changes in it that I've always dug. But I did also choose In the Presence of Enemies Part 2. Something about that half of the song, because it is one song. It's very dark, and I love when they get dark like that. It's kind of like a good follow-up, I would say, to The Dark Eternal Night, and I think what's cool about that one is how kind of dark and vibe that it is. And In the Presence of Enemies kind of continues that, so I really enjoy that. We talked about it on our deep dive into the Systematic Cast record, that that song, because it is one song, just split into 2 parts. It's awesome, and the second half just kicks ass. And even though it's very Dungeons and Dragons-y, lyrically, the music is really cool, and the way that it comes in is just, man, it's like a horror movie almost, and it's just so cool. I love it. So yeah, I actually chose In the Presence of Enemies Part 2. So interestingly enough, we actually agreed on every song but one. And the one that we didn't agree on was Repentance. What the hell? First of all, I'm shocked that we basically picked the same songs. Granted, I didn't know that When Dream and Day Unite was growing on you like it has. But if I would have picked a song that you and I would have differed on, literally my very last choice would have been Repentance. I would have thought we were on the same page with that. I can't even believe it.
So I have a question for you. Now, I
Okay.
understand that I don't think among the diehard fans, Ministry of Lost Souls takes as much of a beating as I give it. And I know you don't hate it, but you're not like a massive fan. But let's just say 60% of the fans are like love it, and the 40% are like, eh. So if you took Repentance and Ministry of Lost Souls out, go ahead and keep Prophets of War in there. It's got enough cool parts, and even though I think it's a little bit, yeah. Would the thoughts on ranking the albums, if you got rid of those two songs, would that bump Systematic Chaos up a couple notches when people go to rank the albums, do you think? Or when they think of this album as a whole, would that help?
Well, I have Systematic Chaos winning 5-3, so that would bring it into a tie. It would be Philu's. John, have a drink before you answer. Look, man, I'm trying to make sure my computer isn't messing up, and I was double checking how much CPU percentage my damn machine is using because it's been acting like an ass. So I'm trying to make sure I'm not talking over a spike. So I missed his question.
Hey, he's being super serious. He's not even drooling, and he's getting out of full sentences for the most part.
I don't have to take this crap from somebody who chose repentance over anything. Like that's ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good one. Like I say, to me it makes it equal in terms of score at 3-3. See,
like,
that's that.
Well, and even like, because I know people are kind of on Forsaken. Most people, like we established that, right?
Yeah.
So I just wonder though, if you took those two songs out, and when people look at this as this album is, as a full entity, even though we totally love some of the songs on here,
mm-hmm.
I think it would probably end up moving it up in my actual rankings when we ever get around to 12 years from now doing our full album.
Yeah, right. Dude, I got to be honest with you. I don't know, because if you take out Repentance and Ministry of Lost Souls, and let's say you do the same thing to When Dream and Day Unite, you're taking away Light Fuse and Get Away and The Ones Who Helped to Set the Sun, which are the two songs that pretty much got panned by everybody, at least, watching tonight. So that might also bump When Dream and Day Unite up.
Well, I'm not going to, I guess I wouldn't do it that way, only because we full disclosure, we knew that they were just a super young band still experimenting and getting their sound and all this and that. So you know what I'm saying? Whereas,
yeah, for sure,
this is way into it. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting thing to think about. Like,
no,
it's weird. Like 8 songs, an hour and 18 minutes. That just, every time I look at that, I'm like, wait, I know it's Dream Theater, but I'm still like, is that right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, your question makes total sense. I mean, I think it's a valid question, because we've talked about it several times that Systematic Chaos, when it's up, it's really up, and when it's down, it's really down. So if you take, I mean, and that was kind of our take on that, in our deep dive, was that, this is a very weird record, because people generally go, yeah, I really like that album. But when you mention certain songs, they're like, ugh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
But people love it because the strong material is so strong that, it really overshadows the songs that aren't as good.
I think it suffers too in that, man, when you just come out of the gate Within the Presence Part 1, and it's the first of 2 songs, it's not one song.
It's the first half of one song, right?
No, it's the first half of 2 songs. So there's 2 songs, and there's 1, and there's 2. But when you come out of the gate with a song like that, it's just like, how do you keep that up for the whole album? And I know it's Dream Theater, and you're like, well, they can, but I mean, come on, my God, like, I don't know what they could have put second out of these that would even make any, like, you almost have to put Forsaken in there because it's kind of catchy and it's not super long. Because it's like, if you get Dark Eternal Night right away, it's probably too much off the bat. No.
Yeah, that's kind of difficult. I mean, really, the only thing you could really replace it with would be, Constant Motion. Maybe Prophets of War.
I was gonna say maybe Prophets of War. Wait a minute. We're doing an episode during an episode. We should do this as an episode. Change around the song orders.
Wow.
Order.
I don't know about. I don't think I'd have very much good input on that because that's like questioning Dream Theater. Listen, Dream Theater, let me tell you how to order your songs.
That's right.
Look at Phil Ooze. Fucking hell, this is getting complicated here. I need a drink, and I quit boozing 8 years ago. Well,
Phil, I'm pretty sure it only took us like 2 minutes into our first podcast where people would have to start drinking to listen to us. We appreciate the compliment, though, that it took like 18 months.
Right. You can just have drinks with us on December 30th with our fan hangout show, Phil, because I'm gonna bust out the gorilla farts again. I figure that's like a must have for the fan hangout, even though it's horrific. But Brian, I actually have a question for the people watching, and my question is this:
do you have anything better to do with your lives?
Yeah, don't you have any hobbies? What is it about Ministry of Lost Souls? Because we didn't get to a lot of the comments, but man, you guys were loving Ministry of Lost Souls, and Brian and I just do not get into that song. So what is it about that one that you guys are really, really into? I cannot, no matter how many times I try, I just cannot get into that song. So explain in the comments. We'll bring it up here and talk about it real quick before we jump off for the night, but man, I don't understand. I don't understand. All right, Mike Schollenberger says, it was seeing it live. Incredible. Okay. Now, did you see it live on the Systematic tour or just on the most recent one? So that's one question for you, Mike. Alex says, I love the guitar sound on Ministry. Okay. I'll give him this. Like the ride out solo on Ministry of Lost Souls is cool. Okay. All right. So Mike says most recent. So he saw it on the View from the Top of the World tour. Okay.
Which was after the tease of 6 Degrees. Like the most horrific letdown in history of like.
That was still. Oh my God! I will never forget that because we knew Ministry was coming, and then they go in. They tease 6 Degrees. And we're like, are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? And then we get Ministry of Lost Souls. It's like, oh my God. If they would have handed us the set list, the pile of songs they were going to play, it's okay. You can write this any way you want. The very last thing we would have done is put Ministry of Lost Souls after a tease of 6 Degrees. And yet that's what we got. That was awesome. Oh, my God. All right, so Adam Rishog says, for me, I really dig the lyrical content. It's a bit of a slow burn, too, which I like. Think of Octavarium. That song takes a long while to get going, but when it does, it's incredible. Ministry has a great build, climax, and ending. Okay. Kale says, it's a beautiful ballad that leads to a great rock section. I love the story in the lyrics. I love the instrumental sections. It's a great song, in my opinion. Okay. Adam compares it to Octavarium. I don't know about you, Brian, but I think Octavarium is interesting and engaging all the way through, even though it's got an over 4-minute continuum solo to intro the song. That song just it's 10 minutes longer than Ministry or whatever, and I just think it's far more engaging, Octavarium, than Ministry of Lost Souls.
Yeah, I get the concept or the correlation. I think there's a similar droning sort of an issue going on, but yeah, I don't know. I just don't hear anything melodically that really grabs me, and I still think that string thing is, it is what it is. It's like it's fine, but I don't know. I'm kind of stunned that more people don't. I guess I'm stunned that everyone loves it as much as they do, because I don't. I mean, they're telling us why, and I'm still like, yeah, but you're wrong,
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Phil Ooze, he says they tease 6 Degrees and go into another song. That's it. Lost all respect for them. Yeah, they played About to Crash, the first after the first quote unquote song after the overture on the second disc of 6 Degrees. They played About to Crash, so we're like, oh my God. Are they gonna do what we think they're gonna do? Because we had heard they were only playing like a handful of songs on this tour, but it was a long show, so we knew it was gonna be all their longer tunes, or at least mostly. So when they went into About to Crash and they did that song, we're going, oh my God, are we gonna get the whole 6 Degrees, presentation? And no, we got About to Crash and then Ministry of Lost Souls. It was like, damn it. So Mike Schollenberger says John Petrucci was so emotional with Ministry. The story is meaningful for people who have lost someone. Okay, I mean, I'll give you that. I mean, if you're looking at it from like an emotional standpoint, I can see that. I think musically it's emotional. To me, it's, song lyrics don't ever really grab me as a story per se. I'm just kind of like, okay, it's cool and it's interesting. It's just I don't really get emotional of it. But all right. Kale says that he has a revelation that would get me booted immediately. Okay. He says, allow me to explain to you that the lack of overture should have clued you into the fact that you weren't getting the full 6 degrees of inner turbulence. I'm aware of that, Kale. But because it was just a whole bunch of instrumentation, maybe they would have cut it out because there were no vocals. They could have done it without overture.
You're not going to get booted immediately. Okay, now get rid of him.
Yeah, you had your say. Now you're out. Oh, my God. All right, Chris Moran, another one for Ministry, says, Ministry of Lost Souls for me. Love the lyrics, and James LaBrie is really good on that song. John Petrucci's guitar riffs and solos are great. All right. Well, I'm glad you guys enjoy it, man.
Obviously, the band loves that song because, this was a big tour, this last one they did, just because of COVID and all that nonsense, and they wanted to do stuff that they really loved and enjoyed playing, and that song obviously means something to them, so that's cool. Good for them.
Yeah. JG3's checking in. What's up, man? Good to see you. He says, hope you are both doing well. We are. Brian actually is risking getting his ass kicked off the show for choosing Light Fuse and or Repentance over Light Fuse and Get Away, but we'll deal with that off the air. We're gonna have a conversation he's not gonna like, but we're gonna hash this out. I'll be at your house a week from Sunday, and
oh God, my wife can't wait to hear us. Our wives can't wait to hear us talk about that, so let's not.
My wife gets out of it because she'll be in Lima.
Oh, so, she's not even coming?
Yeah, I'm flying solo. No. So,
Oh, God. I'm going to have to tell my wife to go to her parents, and last thing she's going to want to do is be around us idiots.
Exactly. So, well, yeah, this was cool, man. I know, like, I know you always get nervous, like, for the cage matches, but I like doing these. I think it's cool to, it kind of gives me a different perspective on albums when you compare them against something else, because doing the deep dives and whatnot, you've got that record in a vacuum and you either like it or you don't, song by song. But I think when you have something to compare it to, it kind of like gives you a fresh perspective on things you've heard a whole bunch of times. So I dig it, so I'm looking forward to doing some more of those. And we actually have a whole bunch of cool stuff coming up here, man. I know that man, what's the next date going to be here? It's going to be, let's see. Yeah, September 8th will be our next episode, Thursday, September 8th, and we are going to be digging into our favorite keyboard parts. It's kind of special for you being a keyboard player, so we're going to be diving into Kevin Moore, Derek Sherinian, and Jordan Rudess. I've already got a few on my list, which is really, really cool. September 22nd, that one is going to be an interesting one. We're trying to chase down kind of a special episode. I've got an email out right now. We're hoping on September 22nd to have an album deep dive into Octavarium with Dream Theater biographer Rich Wilson. If you guys have the Lifting Shadows book, you guys remember him. Did an interview with him a few months back, and he was a really great interview, and he mentioned that he'd love to come back on the show, and he said, if you ever talk about Octavarium, let's do it. So I've got an email out to him to try and get that scheduled. After that, like I said on the last episode, we're going to be doing an album deep dive into Van Halen's 1984 on October 6th. So we got that coming up. And then as I mentioned, we do have our fan hangout, our second fan hangout, which will be on Friday, December 30th. So that week is going to be a Friday show, not a Thursday. So I got a couple emails already. If you guys want to co-host the show and get on the air and talk about anything, that show's kind of a free-for-all. So we could talk Dream Theater. We could talk other music. You can tell your stories. If you want to jump on camera and co-host with Brian and I, just shoot us an email, talkingintoinfinity@gmail.com. And you're more than welcome to come on with us. So that's going to be a blast. And Brian, we still have to figure out what we're going to do about this Metallica episode. We have not nailed down what we want to do. We've got votes for a deep dive into either And Justice for All or Master of Puppets. We've had votes for a cage match between Master of Puppets and Justice, which that one would be difficult because I don't know which of the songs to remove from Justice. So that would be kind of,
What about Ride the Lightning versus Master? Are those closer in number of songs?
Is it? Let me think. God, I haven't listened to Ride the Lightning. I think it's 8-8. I think. I know Justice is 9. Yeah, I think it's 8-8. Now, here's the question with that though: is that too much of a landslide victory for Master of Puppets?
Well, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, see, because Justice is my second favorite album of all time.
Yeah.
So it's obviously my favorite Metallica record. But so for me, Puppets versus Justice is a fair fight. And as much as I love Ride the Lightning, I think Ride the Lightning versus Puppets is kind of, I don't know. Where do you stand on that?
What about like Lulu versus?
Let's do Lulu versus Saint Anger. Hey guys, thanks for tuning into the one episode of Talking Into Infinity nobody will watch nor go back and listen to on replay.
I definitely want to. I'm going to talk to Aiken about this. I want to do some cage matches of like the worst albums by bands and see which ones. I think that would be fun as hell. Well, what about if we do Master against? So Justice has more songs.
Justice has 9,
and Master has 8.
Yes.
I think we could do that somehow. We could figure it out.
Well, I mean, yeah, Kale says it. He says, I think the fact that Dream Theater covered Master of Puppets means it probably has to be Master, right? Yeah. I mean that's the... See, if I had my way, Kale, I would deep dive Justice. Because that and 1984 are the two most influential records in my life. I've said that many times on the show.
All right, let's go live on the air right now. I will consent to, since you let me do moving pictures, I'm letting you do 84, and then I'll concede you do Justice, and then I'll pick another album for me down the road.
Okay, I think that's fair. So we're deep diving in Justice for All. Okay.
JG3, why do we do Justice? Justice is done. You bet. You better believe it.
Look at
San Diego.
Phil Ooze, man. He says Lulu versus the Astonishing. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. All right, well, there we go. All right, Adam Rishog, he says deep dive Justice, cage match, Ride the Lightning, and Master. Both have 8 songs. Okay. Look at this. All right.
See, this is what's going to happen if we do. And I'm okay with this. If we do Ride the Lightning against Master, it's going to be like how you were, the nostalgia factor with Dream Day Unite. That's how it's going to be with me because, my invitation or initiation into Metallica was Ride the Lightning. And to this day, there's few things I've heard. Like the first thing I heard, I was like, "Oh my God!" Now, granted, you got to hear probably Master obviously first, so you're like, "Oh my God!" times 1,000, right? So,
yeah.
But still, I mean, you can't argue the impact of Ride the Lightning either. So yeah, I think that would be cool to do that way down the road. We can schedule that in.
All right. Well, Joe, our discography discussion buddy, says, I'm invited to that, right? Which one are we talking about here, Joe? Are we talking about the deep dive or the cage match? Which one are you in on?
He's talking about the Vince Neil one. He's invited, but his friend can't come.
Yeah, right. All right, so JG3, he says, what about Holy Wars versus Justice or Master of Puppets? I've actually done that.
I was going to say, if only someone had done that, John.
Yeah, Chris Aiken and I did that exact episode. I think it was on Chris Aiken Presents, I want to say, but it's on the CMS network. But Chris and I did that, and it wasn't a cage match per se, like song by song. It kind of was. He chose Holy Wars, and I took Justice.
See, I think you should. I think that should have been Master of Puppets if you're doing an actual cage match. But if you guys were doing just more of a whatever you called it.
I think we did kind of go song by song, and it is 9 songs to 9 songs.
Okay.
And it's, I mean, dude, you start off right away with Blackened versus Holy Wars. It's like, holy shit. Like, you want to talk about a difficult discussion. It's like, man. So that's a good one though. But good suggestion, JG3. Good suggestion. All right, so there it is. We're gonna do a cage match between Ride the Lightning and Puppets. We're gonna do a deep dive into Justice, and then you're gonna pick a deep dive of an album you love. Remember, it's got to be by a band that is influential to Dream Theater. So we got to keep it in that realm if we can. Otherwise, if there's an album that you absolutely love, then we can do that. Chris Moran says, "What about Slayer?" I like Slayer. I'm really not a fan of anything past Divine Intervention, and I think a lot of people that are into like the classic stuff even think that record's kind of shitty. So that would be difficult for me. So.
Well, with Slayer, it's always, how long can you last in a frozen water burial? It's you never know. They've never give you the answer to that, right? So, anyway.
Oh my God! I will say, Decade of Aggression is like one of the best live records ever. So at least they've got that going for them. But so there we go. We got a lot of really cool stuff coming up. So thank you guys for hanging out tonight. This was an awesome episode. Appreciate it. Again, Brian, you are completely on drugs for choosing Repentance over Light Fuse and Get Away. We learned a lot about Ministry of Lost Souls tonight, so that was cool. So yeah, this was great, man. We as we've said a lot, guys, we appreciate all the interaction in the chat. So Mike Schollenberger, our good buddies Kale and Adam, Chris Moran, Phil Ooze, JG3, good to see you, man. Alex, thanks for tuning in. So you guys are awesome. Remember, if you guys have missed any episodes, you just go to our YouTube channel or the CMS Network YouTube channel, or just Google Talking Into Infinity podcast, and all of the previous episodes are right there for you to check out. So why are you laughing? Do we have one more?
Phil Ooze, Village People's Greatest Hits versus Dr. Feelgood.
Village People Greatest Hits versus Dr. Feelgood. Nice.
Now, if you said versus
Phil,
Generation
God,
Swine, I'd be on board, and Village People would destroy that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, I agree. So anyways, guys, thanks for checking out the episode. Appreciate you very much. We will be back here on Thursday, September 8th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as I said, we will be discussing our favorite keyboard moments. So get a list of yours together and jump in here, see if you agree with what we've got for our takes, our opinions. Throw yours out there. We'll bring you up on the screen as we did tonight. Always awesome to have the spirited conversation, have you guys playing right along. So, Brian, great episode, man. It was good to see you.
You too, buddy. And I'm looking forward to the keyboard episode in 2 weeks. We'll see you then.
Sounds good. All right, everybody. Have a great night. We'll see you in 2 weeks. And as always, Carpe Diem.